All right, hello again out there in listener land. It's Dr. G here with another episode of Therapy Without the Couch. Today I am joined by a guest. I have with me Toni Will. Toni is a sports executive, author, speaker, leadership coach. She's the general manager and governor of the Kalamazoo Wings, making her one of a small number of women leading a men's professional hockey franchise. She's the founder of a growing coaching and speaking practice focused on behavior first change, burnout prevention, and alcohol-free performance. She hosts the Women In podcast, which she had me as a guest on recently, and she's the author of an upcoming book, Rebellious Success, a TEDx speaker, on and on. What an interesting person. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's so good
Appreciate
to
you.
see you. Yeah, we had so much fun. I really enjoyed listening to our interview. What a great conversation we had. So I'm honored to be on your podcast.
Now we continue the conversation, just
Yeah.
in a different format. So yeah, I have a bunch of questions for you today, things that I think my listeners might be interested in. Given the folks that I focus on and the treatment approach I focus on, I think you're a fitting guest for this podcast. One of the things I want to jump right in with is, this resume you've got here. There's so many things you're doing in different spheres, but you're balancing career and mom. Now your kids are older, I believe, but I want to hear. I see that struggle so often for women sitting on my couch. Like, how do I do it? How do I do it all? Do I have to pick? Did you feel like you had to pick? Was it like phases? Was it a straight line? Just juggle it all and make it work? Like, can you tell me a little bit about that balancing act?
Yeah, this is a great question. I don't get to talk about it a lot, so I appreciate being asked about it. So just so everyone knows a little bit, I have a blended family. And so my husband and I married 5.5 years ago. So my oldest is my stepdaughter, but I don't necessarily refer to her as that when I call her. She's just my daughter. She's almost 24. And then the next two are my biological children from my first marriage. And my son's just turned 22 this week. And then my youngest is 19. So the two older are out of the house working full time. And then my youngest is still living at home and going to college. So we're nearly empty nesters. And so it was interesting because when I had Landon, which is my son, 22 years ago, I was working full time in banking, which was the first 13 years of my career. And I felt this pull when I had him. Like, it's interesting when you give birth because it's like all the chemicals and all the things that I just wanted to be with him so badly. So I ended up experimenting being a stay-at-home mom back then. And I remember my in-laws at the time, and even my parents, were really shocked because I was always very career-oriented. But I felt such a pull that I couldn't explain. And so I stayed home with Landon for a year. And I got to say, it was a great year. I was able to take care of myself. I lost a bunch of weight that I gained during the pregnancy. That's where I discovered my love for fitness. And I got to it was beautiful because it was just Landon and I one-on-one. But when he turned a year old and he was mobile and he started to develop his personality, I started to get antsy. And I was like, I missed the challenge of a career and then having my own identity, because I think identity was a big part of that. So I went back to work after that, and then a few years later I had my daughter, and then within a year of that I was divorcing. And so and I say all that, one, because I'm an open book, but two, because it wasn't a choice anymore. I didn't get to choose if I wanted to stay home or not, because I was going through divorce.
Right.
So, and the divorce was my decision. I just wasn't happy. There wasn't anything monster, like there wasn't this big thing.
Skeleton in the closet,
Yeah, I just wasn't happy. And so then I went right back into the workforce, and I went back to banking because that's what I knew at the time. And so I didn't have, like I had to make money. And that changed over the years because I remarried, and I was still in banking at that point. And then my career, as in my resume, it pivoted in my mid-30s to working for the Chamber of Commerce. And I just loved like having both identities, mom and career-driven woman. And this was even before professional sports, because the kids were I don't remember at the time, but they weren't even teenagers yet when I got into pro sports. But that was a whole different phase of my career, and I brought them into it more because it's a family oriented field.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't talk about it much, so I don't have a very concise. I have a long-winded
No,
answer.
but it's a journey, and that's why I asked, because I think everybody's story is different, and my wife is an OG Taylor Swift fan, so I reference, I've been to 3 of her concerts, but Taylor Swift's Eras tour. And so in some cases we have to have our eras. I'm in my working era, I'm in my mom era, I'm in my empty nest era. But sometimes, I mean, to your point with the divorce, which yes, you chose, but still do we choose it, or does it just fall in that way? Like, I don't have a choice. Not everybody has a choice to stay at home. Not everybody has a choice to work part-time. So sometimes you do have to just kind of juggle it all at once, or find your path. And it's not, there's no one path.
No, there's not. And I get asked about this a lot from women generations behind me. Like, how do I do this, Toni? How do I stay in sports? And how did you do it? And I'm like, well, I had help. When you're divorced, you have a custody arrangement.
Right.
And so I was a part-time parent.
Time off. Yeah.
Yeah, and I say that because I had to make peace with that. I mean, it was part of the choice, but the other side of it is it also allowed me to dive into my career.
Right. Pros and cons. Yeah.
Right. And so how I framed it as I started to accomplish these things on my resume or in my bio that you read, I believe that I'm role modeling the behavior that I want my kids to see. And I set goals. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. And I'm trying to be a good role model for
There's an intentionality there.
There is for all 3 of my kids. So that's what I choose to look at when I really, in the last 11 years of my career up to this point, because pro sports was a whole different beast.
I can imagine. Yeah, different hours, different demands, different. Yeah.
100%. It is. Yeah. That's all those things. Holidays, weekends. I travel, so you're missing certain things, and I have to rely heavily on my husband, and actually, how many years has it been? 6 years ago, then I got my kids full time. There was a whole custody thing there during COVID, and so then I became a full-time parent again. Right. And so there was navigating through that world, and
shifting.
Yeah. So it was like, how do the classic conundrum for women, and this was my governing belief. How do I have it all?
That's the $1 million question. And that's why there was an article in New York Magazine back when I was living in New York City, I don't know, 25 years ago, and it was called "She Has It All" or something like that. It was a cover article, and it talked about this woman, C-suite executive, perfect body, lives on the Upper East Side, 2.5 kids, a dog, everything, But when you read deeper into the article, she had a nanny for each kid, she had a fitness trainer, she had a cook, she had a personal assistant, she had a spouse. So if you're going to have it all, partly I think it's a lie to have it all at once. I think you have it in phases, and it's kind of not all perfect. Or it takes a village. You either need assistance or a spouse or family or a friend. Like, you're not doing it alone. You don't get to have it all solo because it's just unrealistic. There's not enough time in the day to do it, or to do it the way you would like to do it. Maybe you check the box, but you're not really doing any of it well. But I think it's a myth that's sold. This is, I can soapbox about this all day, because I think this is also like when you were in school, your math teacher would say, well, do your math homework. And you're like, but Miss Johnson, we have an English essay due tomorrow. And Miss Johnson's like, I don't give a crap. I don't teach English. But your English professor thinks you shouldn't do the math. And so everybody wants you to do their thing, but you're supposed to do all the things, and nobody's considering that, like, these things don't all, like, where? Show me how. How does it all fit together?
Exactly.
It's unrealistic. But in a lifetime, you have it all. And maybe at times you dial back, you down throttle the momming. At times you dial down the working. But you said identity, and that's something I really want to grab onto, because I think I see a lot of moms fall into the postpartum depression, and we don't even need to call it that. We can just call it depression because I get lost. Because that first year of life, I do wish we had some kind of American healthcare system or employment system that the first year really you should be home with your kid. You really should. There's such a demand to mother and child. But then they need socialization. Then they need to go to school. Then you need stimulation. You can't just think about the kids' feeding schedule all day. So there's like a pivot point when now if I chose to give up my career, I'm not really needed 100% by the child, but I don't have this other thing. And so now I'm adrift. I'm lost. I need my me again.
Exactly. And that was it. And so it was interesting because I was like, I need me again. Should I feel guilty about this? Especially when I guess I had a choice, like when I remarried. I could,
Right.
I guess, did we want to be a one income household and I stay home?
Yeah.
But I just knew that wasn't who I was.
Right, right. And that doesn't, but there's a feeling of guilt as a mom. Am I choosing not to give my kids 100%? Does that make me wrong? But then you're going to get guilt from the other folks who are more in the working world, whether they're moms or not, that why aren't you at work? So again, everybody thinks that their thing is the right path, and you're going to be made to feel wrong almost depending on who you ask.
Well, it is because what it boils down to are beliefs.
Yeah. What is your value system? What makes sense for you?
Exactly. And so I definitely was like, okay, once I learned that my governing belief was I wanted to have it all, and this kind of goes back to one sentence that was in my bio you read, which is I choose to live alcohol free. I really stepped back and looked at what is my definition of having it all. And that helped me say wine is part of it. Like in my head, alcohol was part of that definition. And if I took that out, how I wouldn't have it all. I would be deprived of something if I chose to look at it that way. But the reality was when I chose to stop drinking, and I get asked this question a lot, not necessarily about the alcohol, because people are afraid to bring that one up, which there shouldn't be any stigma around that. But it's like, how do you do all the things that Dr. G just read on your bio? And this is how I removed this one thing that sucked up an enormous amount of my time. Thinking about drinking, actively drinking, recovering from drinking. I gave myself about 800 hours a year on average back. And it allows me to invest that into these other things I'm passionate about.
Now that's fascinating. I mean, I'm in the world of mental health, so I know about folks that are struggling with substance use, but that was going to be one of my questions to you, that in the absence of drinking, what does Toni do to de-stress, to turn off the brain? Because I think that's why, there's a lot of reasons people get caught up in the world of substance use, but like the average Joe or Jane goes to it as, oh, I've had a stressful day. The kids, the job, I can't wait for that glass of wine, that mommy juice. So what's your replacement? What's the swap?
So there's a couple. One, so in the morning I call what set the table for the day. So before you and I had done this interview, I have a cup of coffee in the morning quietly by myself. I watch some mindless television. I just need 40 minutes, and then I work out, I meditate, I eat a healthy breakfast, and I should mention, actually, before I drink coffee, I drink at least 16 ounces of water. And so I just set myself up for the morning, and by that, I feel grounded, and then my day can go any which way. Throughout the day, I weave in pockets of time for connection with, I don't know, I have friends, like I connect with them on Marco Polo app. I maybe call my dad who lives down in Florida, like just connecting. And then I also read, so I weave that in. These are things that just help me stay settled. Yeah. The other thing is, and why I love my coaching business so much, is when I'm coaching clients, I get out of myself, be within their world. And that really helps me get out of what I call my bionic hamster brain. I picture this hamster in a hamster wheel. She's half cyborg and half hamster. And she's running and she's doing overhead presses like a maniac. That's my brain, the bionic hamster. So that helps.
I have a visual.
Yeah. So that helps me get out of her. So there's several facets that's I've quit drinking over 5 years ago. And so this didn't happen overnight. Like, oh,
Sure,
I
of
quit
course.
drinking. I've really worked on this version of me and how I stay um, regulated. I can tell when I'm getting dysregulated.
But you're setting yourself up, like you said, like starting the day right. So I'm already kind of keeping myself from over revving that engine as best I can. And then intermittently throughout the day, you have different exercises, different activities that can. So we're not building. And at the end of the day, there's this like feeling of, now I sit down with the drink. Yeah.
Correct.
Maintenance, sort of
And this,
stay ahead of it.
exactly. Oops, I'm knocking my water over. So this goes back to the. Oh, I lost my train of thought on that. What was I going to say? It'll come back to me.
Maintenance, getting ahead of it.
Maintenance,
Preparing.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. It'll come back to me.
It'll come back. All right. So then to that question, you're a coach, but have you done your own therapy? Have you been the recipient of coaching? Like most people when they go on a sobriety journey, they do some kind of version of AA or therapy or something, but just in general, have you sat down and done the work in that direction?
Yeah, so this is a really great question, and I'm going to be very honest. So yes, I have done therapy off and on over the years. I've had a hard time with it, and I've done coaching too, and I've done both at the same time.
Yeah.
So I've done everything. I have found for me that coaching has helped me more in my personality type because I like to have a dialogue. And so, in therapy, I found, and I think it depends, of course, on the doctor and the provider.
Sure. Yeah.
But I have found it to be more of a one-way thing where I'm talking the whole time. And I like more, and I also like with coaching, it's more looking through the windshield where therapy tends to be unpacking the past, like the rear view mirror. And of course, it's not one size fits all. But yeah, I have, and I think I know I still have more work to do with the rear view mirror stuff. I just haven't had a willingness to try. I tried last year when my mom died, and I just could not find the right fit. And so I was like, I keep going with coaching.
No, but it's a fit. I mean, whatever method you pursue. I mean, yes, to your point, coaching versus therapy, kind of different directional, but it's got to be, you got to feel like this is my person. This feels safe. I want to come back next week. Yeah. And that's actually, I was trained the old school psychodynamic way where I just spend the whole hour going, And in private practice, especially, I'm like, nobody wants that. Like, that still exists a little bit in New York City. You'll have some traditional analysts where you lay on the couch and 3 times a week you talk up at the ceiling. But I'm very active and coach-like because, yeah, I think people, A, want to know a little bit what's this person across from me thinking, but B, yeah, like I could talk to my friends. I want to leave here with something, some kind of spark, right? I don't want to just talk out loud, think out loud, kind of.
And part of it for me was depending what I'm working on, I
Yes.
want someone that understands that thing I'm working on. So
Yes.
I want to be not only heard but seen in a real way. So when I was working on alcohol, coaching was great for me because my coach, like me, struggled with substance. So
Yeah.
he understood that. And I'm like, yes, because there's so many nuances
Yeah.
to alcohol that's different from, say, cocaine or meth or
Yep.
things I hadn't done. Like I hadn't
Yep.
done those
Yeah,
drugs.
it's not my
So
world. Yeah.
if someone was a cocaine coach, for instance, like they coach people to like get off cocaine, they're going to understand the nuances of that where that wouldn't have helped me. So,
Right.
but alcohol did. So that was really important to me. Or one of the biggest root issues I've had is my 2 best friends. There was 3 of us that grew up together, and they both died at a very young age. And I'm the only one, and I was the rebel black sheep, and they were they're very good girls. And I mean, we had a beautiful childhood together, but the way they died was very sudden and tragic. And I was very young before my brain was fully developed at 25.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't quite know how to handle that at the time. And I know there are things in that have held me back from the issue of creating solid friendships with other women.
And that's where the deeper therapeutic work, because it's grief work, it's trauma work, and it's understanding what kind of barriers you've put up or what kind of patterns you're looking for, those expectations. Why get close to somebody? Because what if this happens again? What if I'm the bad luck charm? Yeah, there's all this belief system. Yeah, we form these core beliefs and we don't realize it. And you go, oh, that's why I'm doing this. Yeah,
100%. And I
but doing
know
that,
that's looming out
but
there, and it's like, man, I
but
need to have
that's
a
almost
voice.
like it's like needing a root canal or something. Like if it doesn't hurt you every day, you know you need this. But who wants to go sit in the chair for a root canal? And yeah, I do trauma work, but I hate it because patients they're like, oh, I didn't want to come in this week. I'm like, I know. Who wants to face this? It's easier just to shove it down, but you know it's doing something bad, right? It needs
Right.
addressing. It's just, ugh,
It
ugh.
is. And I also know having like so I was in my 20s when they died, and but my mom just died a year ago and I was 47 when my mom died. So that's still like a wound
Mm-hmm.
with my mom. This one with my best friends is more of a scar at this point. And
Yep.
so I feel like for me, I think I have a willingness to dive into that more.
Yep.
And it won't trigger anything because I want being sober for as long as I have doesn't mean like, oh, I've been sober 5+ years, this won't be triggering. But I always say all roads lead back to alcohol, so
Mm.
for me, so it's like I'm mindful of that.
And those triggers, man. I mean, we overuse that word in pop
We
culture,
do.
but we time travel like that. You have a certain experience, and suddenly you're whatever age again. You're right back in it.
You are, and our brain rewrites history, as you
Mm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I remember something from my 47-year-old self, I'm that's a different person than who experienced it at 23.
Well, and a quick pitch for this type of therapy. There's a type of therapy called narrative therapy, where it is about retelling the story. But then, even if you write a story for me, now write it for me a week later, now write it for me a month later, and even in your current age self, with enough talk therapy, that same story, certain details change, and it helps you process through and realize how much of it is like fact, as much as we can have facts, versus what was my perception, what was my experience, what was my little zhuzh that I put on it, you know?
Exactly. I love it. I've never heard of narrative therapy.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, it's part of what I did my dissertation on years ago. I was really fascinated with journaling and the way we journal and the way we write and the language we use. And this professor I worked under, Pennebaker, he has this whole language analysis program, which I can't imagine what he's doing with AI with it now. But even just your choice of saying the or that or I or me, all those little words could become predictors of your mental state. So he's been able to analyze the poems of like famous poets who committed suicide, and you can see like, oh, they're coming up to it. You can see it in the language shift. So the way we use language really matters, and the way and this is partly where you get into manifesting and some of the like setting an intention. The language you use in your own head, even if nobody hears it, it matters. It's all programming you in one direction or the other.
100%. It's like the law of attraction because I've been doing
Yeah,
some
yeah,
reading on that. That's
yep,
exactly it
yep.
because if you believe it, I call it sometimes I said it today, I'm like, there are parts of me that has been so delusional, but in a good way because I'm of my own delusion, I've been able to accomplish so many things because I believe I can figure it out.
No, again, back to Taylor Swift. We're watching her documentary right now, and you have to see your girl, your daughter, playing a guitar and be like, she's going to be something. We're going to throw everything into this. And you don't know. She may not be Taylor Swift. She may just play guitar for a few years and then go work at a bank. But you have to have this almost unrealistic, let's do it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because maybe. Well,
Maybe.
with that idea of law of attraction, I wanted to ask you in these in different leadership roles you have or have had, like, is there do you feel like being a woman in a man's world of a sort with sports, like, do you think you lead differently? Do you think maybe it's not even being a woman, but being a sober person or a coach? But I wonder what your leadership style is, and are you conscious of maybe that's not how some of your peers would do things
Yeah.
or would say things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, the short answer is yes. And
Yeah.
once you see something, it's hard to unsee it. And
Mm.
so by that, I mean, there was a naivety to me when I came into the sports world because I wasn't seeking this role. This wasn't a
Yeah.
dream job for me. It was completely on accident. And I didn't know that my gender would play such a role, especially as a white woman. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a minority, and like, no. And so as I started to open my eyes to this, and really it started with the board of governors. So each
Mm.
professional sports league is governed. It's like a board of directors, but we're called
Mm-hmm.
governors. And
Okay.
I was sitting in this meeting years ago and I looked around and there's like 60 of us. And I'm like, oh my
Mm.
God,
Yeah. Who stands
there's
out?
there's maybe one woman here sometimes and then me
Mm-hmm.
every time. I was the only
Mm-hmm.
female governor. And so I was like, I've got some work to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do the work. The way I saw myself showing up, so there's two different parts of my leadership. One is in the front office with my staff day to day with the Kalamazoo
Mm-hmm.
Wings, and then there's the league side.
Mm-hmm.
In the front office, I show up as very much my authentic self. It's a balance of feminine and masculine. I'm a type
Mm.
A.
Yep.
Um, and so that mothering, nurturing, caring side of me comes out a lot, and I don't have to present that masculine,
Yep.
Teflon skin type thing.
Mm-hmm.
The league side I have found, and I'm working on this because I just came back from Board of Governors last week because we meet in person 3 times a year. I am really mindful now of ensuring I'm bringing that feminine energy because the masculine side of me is defensive
Mm.
and I'm angry. And so I'm really working on bringing that feminine side. And part of that feminine side is that mother side, that empathy,
Mm.
that care, that compassion, and that open mindedness. And so I'm bringing that more to my leadership style with my peers. And it's also the art of letting go. Because I do think differently. And what I've noticed is I'm usually like, if I suggest something or I bring a point
Mm-hmm.
up, it will get shut down. And 6 months later, it will bubble back up from someone else's mouth who's not a woman. And you know where I'm going
Mm-hmm.
with this. And it's like all of a sudden the sun is
What a great
shining, the
idea.
clouds have parted. Yeah, great idea. And so I've had to, instead of coming angry and like,
Yeah.
I'm one of you, I'm one of the guys. And this connects back to my drinking world too, because I felt like part of my identity was I could belly up to the bar with the boys because I had to
Mm-hmm.
be in professional sports, which isn't
Mm.
true.
But it is. I think there is that tendency to feel like I need to like speak their language or walk their to be accepted, right? I'll just be one of the guys in the boardroom or in the bar room. But yeah, I think it's balance. It's being self-aware of the masculine and feminine. I gotta imagine, right? Like you, because if you just act like one of the guys, then what's the point of being a woman in the room? Yeah, I need to change that. I need to throw in that different perspective. Otherwise, I'm not making change. But it's
Exactly.
scary. What if they reject it? What if I get ignored? What if I get overlooked? Yeah. Did I need to pound my chest more?
Exactly. And I can give you actually two very recent examples of
Mm.
where I have been shot down or I've had to speak
Mm-hmm.
up. And I lock them away now as receipts because one, I get asked about it a lot and I like to give examples, but two, it's how I can grow as a person because I'm obsessed with being able to um, respond and not react
Mm.
and not take things
That's
so
tough.
personal and get defensive because I've lived in that. I've been playing that record over and over again, and it's time to get it off the record player. So the first example is there are different positions within the board of governors. There's a chairperson, there's a vice chair, there like secretary.
Mm-hmm.
My goal for many years has been to be the first chairwoman ever of the board.
Mm-hmm.
I've ran for it. I've been voted down. I've been so then I'm like, well, why don't I shoot for vice chair?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
because
Work my way up.
yeah, work my way up. So I throw my hat in the ring for vice chair, get shot down. There's a whole story behind that that's actually going to be in my book that comes out this summer. But and then in this story, this next part wasn't because it just happened recently. There was a turnover in chairman, and I threw my hat again in the ring, yet again for vice chair, and was passed over again. And that was just last week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a choice. You know, I could be angry. I could stomp my feet. I could pick up the phone and call the commissioner and say, this is
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a woman
Mm-hmm.
and this life isn't fair. Or I can just accept it. And I think you and I talked about this when I interviewed you. Like, I visualize myself whacking a pinata with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been hitting the pinata with the stick. It's starting to crack, but the candy's not coming out. And it's not my pinata to crack, but I've
Yep.
helped. And
Yep.
so some woman
Yep.
behind me will do
Yep.
that. And I'm so happy for her.
Right. Right.
So I've done my part. The other example I'd give, and this happened last week, is there was a conversation about we vote on a lot of things at the board, you know, about the governance of the league. And I
Sure.
didn't agree with one of the topics we were discussing. And so I listened to everyone and we vote as an exec committee and I was the sole dissenting vote.
Hmm.
And then they asked me why, and I explained. I said, "Well, I think it's just overcomplicated, and I think it could be simpler, and I think it could get really political." And I said, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's my opinion, and I don't want to slow the process down, but that's how I feel. And I was able to do it in a way that was just how I just said it to you,
Mm-hmm.
conversational,
Yeah.
not like, because I've felt like in the past, like if I have to really be firm and frame it the right way.
Shout it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I said my piece and I moved on.
But what I love about that story is that you were the one dissenting vote. And so this is where I like to have a mix of men and women in leadership roles because, as we said on your podcast, men and women do think different. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It just is. And so sometimes you need a different perspective to go, huh, I didn't think about it that way. Maybe it is overly complicated. Maybe it will get political. I didn't go there with it. You get this group think if you get too many people of whatever likeness, and everybody's just nodding and agreeing with each other. But there needs to be somebody who goes, just a thought. What about this that maybe you didn't see it that way?
Exactly. And then it created more conversation. Did it change
Yeah.
anything? No. Then the next day it went to the larger board for the board meeting, and we voted as a board. There are 32 teams in the league. 30 teams voted yes, 2 teams voted no, and I was one of the no's. That's okay.
Yeah.
I was
It's on the
proud of
record.
that.
Yeah.
I was proud of that because I'm willing to put myself out there, and even if I'm told no or it doesn't go my way, how I respond to that is my barometer of growth as a female leader.
Yeah, like you said, the responding versus reacting. And I think it's a long game, any of these things. If we think too short term, if you want immediate results with whatever, you're going to be frustrated. But if you can think bigger picture, yeah, I think it's little shifts, little cracks in the piñata. Yeah.
It really is. And it is, I always say this, it's in the mundane. Like change
Yeah.
is in the mundane. It's
Yeah.
in showing up over and over and over and over again. It's in showing up and then, you know, slowly starting to, however it is for the whoever has a seat at the table, for the woman at the table, because it takes time to grow confidence and courage. But start by showing up, and then speak up as confidence follows with that.
But it is the mundane, and some of it's the language. Something I'm conscious of, because I work with women so often. I'm trying to push women forward. When somebody says, "Well, I saw my doctor. I'm going to see my doctor," I go, "Well, ask her this, or what did she say?" And I lead with a female pronoun, which is not what we're programmed to do. It's that old joke about how could it be that the father and son get in an accident? Do you know this joke?
No.
Yeah, so it doesn't really hit us anymore. Okay, so a father and son are in a car accident. They are taken to different hospitals for emergency surgery. The surgeon comes in, stands over the child and says, "I can't operate on this boy, he's my son. Tell me how." And most people are like, "I don't know, maybe the man got better, maybe it's because it was his mom. His mom's the surgeon." But
Yeah.
nobody thought it could be the mom was the surgeon. It's got to be the dad. So just that little language shift, I think it is the mundane, just to give the thought of, well, what if it was the mom who's the surgeon? What if your doctor is a woman? Why do we have to make it assumptions that this is who's going to be in these positions? Let's start gearing the next generation differently. And
Well,
yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's why I use the language, to your point, because language is so important and powerful, is chairperson. And I
Yep.
say
Yep.
that because chairman is, and it has been all men for 40 years, but I believe that having a woman in that position is important and well past due.
There's a funny, sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek Instagram account I like called "The Man Who Has It All," and whoever runs it will post things that'll say like, "Yeah, so you're applying for the firewoman position or the policewoman position, and why does it matter? It's just a term. What do you care if you're a guy applying for the firewoman position?" And that's the right. If we reverse it, it's suddenly it hits a little different. Yeah, you're gonna be a
That
fireman.
is hilarious.
It's and he or she, whoever runs the account, does all these type of things repeatedly, and it's a very funny, like, when you turn it on its ear, suddenly it ruffles feathers and you go, oh, well, I don't like how that feels. So yeah,
I gotta go follow this account.
I enjoy it. I don't know who they are, but good, they're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
And I can relate to some of this stuff. That's why I'm asking you this question about the leadership and the position, because you're a woman in a man's world, and I'm a man in a woman's world. I am one of the rare guys in my office, and people are surprised to now. If I say psychologist or doctor, people think, yeah, you're a guy. But if I say therapist, it's yeah, you expected a woman. So
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
we're in the world of feelings.
Well, and I love that because when we talked about that on my podcast, I was like, I love this. So especially in the sober world, there are so many women who are in this world and very few men. So I'll have men on the podcast that are in that community with me. And I'm like, let's talk about this because I love that, the inverse of men being in a female dominated industry, because we can connect, you and we connected
Yeah,
on that. We get it.
yeah. And I really think it is that masculine and feminine. I think we get too caught up in this is what guys do, this is what girls do. And again, I do think biologically our brains go different places, sort of perceive things differently, and your experiences socially shape you differently. But we all have a little masculine and feminine, and we can all tap into, you don't need to strictly stay in your lane, sort of.
Yeah, and what I'm finding is where I get stuck is sometimes I'm like, I don't know how. How it's easier for me to tap into my masculine, and I know why that is. It's easier for me to put up walls. It's easier to be non-emotional. Like that stuff is easier for me. Like a survival mechanism. It's harder for me to be vulnerable. It's harder for me to be emotional, like in a good way. It's to be raw. That's hard for me. It's hard for me to soften the edges. And I'm aware of that. So it's like, okay, how do I do this? And it starts with awareness and just catching myself in the awareness of it and noting that, okay, half the battle is watching myself and noting it. And then I can keep doing the work.
But people don't like when I use this word, but I think we can all learn how to manipulate. And manipulation has this negative connotation. It feels like I'm going to scam you or I'm going to take advantage of you. But any social interaction, there's a degree of manipulation. I'm trying to think, what do you want me to hear? Are we going to be polite? Are we going to be direct? Are we going to talk politics? What are your politics? Should I agree with your politics? That way, so we're always trying to kind of read the other person. And I think to some degree, a lot of what I try to do is coach people on that. How do you use your natural self? But if you deliver the message this way, or if you posture yourself this way, like how can you tweak the situation? Some of it's even, I'm thinking about showing up with that masculine energy, but like some of it's even how you dress, which people don't like to talk about that, but like the attire you wear sends a message whether somebody's going to take you seriously or not, whether you take them seriously or not. Like we are manipulating. And so some people get creeped out because they think that I'm teaching you how to like mess with people. Some people say, well, I want to stay true to me. But I think there's a way to stay true to your message, but then understand if you walk in this boardroom dressed in a suit versus a t-shirt and jeans, you're going to get a different reaction, not because you're a woman, but because everybody else is wearing suits. And so you're not playing the game. Sometimes you have to like sugarcoat the pill to make them swallow it, sort of,
100%. And this is the way we dress is really an important example, because I definitely think about this more. One, I start to think about how do I want to feel today?
Yes.
So, like
Yeah.
today, you and I were
Like
talking about
tone.
here. It's 1 degree here in Michigan today as the high, and I'm doing this interview with you virtually, so I can be more. I'm comfortable being more casual, and wearing the hoodie and whatever else. But I put makeup on, and
Right.
so just because I wanted to feel comfortable but look nice today for this. And so, but to your point, when I walked into the board meeting last week, I was more intent. I was thinking about how do I want to show up today in my feminine energy
Mm-hmm.
and feel confident. So I wore a dress that day. I put on tights that day, and I don't wear
Mm-hmm.
that often, but I really thought, and I felt good. And it helped me show up to the meeting in the energy I wanted as I sit there for 8 hours talking about all these various topics.
But see, you went in a dress. And in my head, I pictured she's going to wear a pantsuit or a skirt suit. And almost like one of the boys, but a little feminine. But you went full dress. And
Yeah.
there's a message behind that. Um, again, not a plug, I don't get anything from this, but Madeleine Albright, when she was Secretary of State, she wrote this book called My Pins, the story of my pins. And she would wear a different pin on her coat or dress to indicate a subtle a tone, and they all had a message behind it. They all had a historical significance, and not everybody in the room gets it, but there's this: A, it's a tone I'm setting for myself, but B, if you do get the message, I'm telegraphing this to you. I hope you got the undercurrent of what this means.
I love that. I wrote that down because I love to
Yeah,
read.
it's
Uh,
fascinating.
and it's true, and that's where I show, I really, and just a funny aside, a quirk about me is when I fly, it doesn't matter how far I'm going or how long I'm gone, I only pack a carry-on. I will not check luggage. It is a weird quirk, but
I
because
get
of the
it.
way this trip was, it's not a quirk, it's a control problem. I know that, but
Yeah, we got it. Yeah. Okay, therapy.
yeah, but because of how this trip was structured, because I had several legs on this trip, I was like, there's no way I can do it with a carry-on. So I decided that I had a willingness to check a bag at 3 different airports because of the way this was, and I did. And everything ended up fine, and I was able to dress the way I wanted in these various, because I had a speaking engagement in one
Roles.
place, I was
Mm-hmm.
a conference attendee in one place, I'm in a board of governors meeting in another, I have VIP this, that, and the other for the All-Star game. And so I was like, okay, how? So I did that, and so now it goes back to this growth mindset, this belief that maybe my luggage won't get lost and I won't be, nude in these meetings, but that it's all like it all just goes back to a willingness to change and try new
Mm-hmm.
things and experiment and find out that the sky's not falling and everything's going to be okay.
But staying true to my values. I want to show up a certain way. I want to feel comfortable in my skin, and so there's this balancing act. So, yeah, I mean, if anybody's listening out there, I think that take wisdom from slightly elder elders here. That like, yeah, it's you need to be intentional with these things, but you don't need to stay hardly, firmly in. I never check luggage, or I always dress this way, or I always speak in the masculine or feminine way. Sometimes you got to just flex a little because it works. It's gonna come across differently. And if you really want to get the message across, kind of who cares how we did it? That's what I really do believe in. That like whatever way you need to digest this, okay, so long as you got there. I've been humbled over the years. I think I'm a PhD psychologist. People should listen to me. And I'll try to give a patient a message, and a few weeks later they'll be like, I saw this TikTok and it clicked. And I'm like, that's the thing I was trying to tell you. But you know what? If
Okay.
this TikTok influencer got you to get, okay, the whole point was for you to get there. I don't need the credit. You did the thing. Good. Great. We got there.
Yeah, it's the
So,
pinata.
yeah,
You know that.
exactly. Let go of the ego.
Well,
You
I
got
wrote that word down, Todd, ego, because this is what I'm working on. And perhaps from your perspective, ego is not just my ego, but proverbial ego. Because there's a difference in my mind. It's like, it's not about my vanity or about my level of importance or my title or all that. It's me getting out of my own way and not there's other ways to look at things. I can challenge my own beliefs. And if
Mm,
something doesn't go my way and I see my ego getting in the way and I having resistance thoughts and I'm starting to be like, what the F are they thinking? They don't have it right. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this job for 11 years. I'm blah blah blah. Like that's my
mm-hmm.
ego.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do I, okay, there it is. How do I like pause and and push the ego aside and just be.
It's
Tricky.
so hard. It's so hard. It's constant check-in. It's constant awareness. Whoa, what's happening there? Why am I having this tightness in my chest? What's going on for me? Why am I clenching my teeth?
Why am I holding my breath?
Yeah, yeah. But it's interesting. Everybody has a different physical tell. Why am I biting my nails? Why am I jiggling my leg? Like, what's the thing that lets you know that something's getting under your skin? And why is it getting under your skin? Is it ego? Is it control? Is it there's one right way? Do I need to be validated? Do I feel like if I don't get the win, then now I am nothing? And we have this, I think so often we have these binary beliefs, this all or nothing, this I'm good or bad. I have another podcast coming out soon talking about our shadow selves. And we all have a little shadow self. We all have a little, and sometimes you need that. That's not, but we want to believe you're either an A student or an F. You're either going to heaven or hell. And it's ideal in shades of gray, and life is shades of gray. And once you get okay with that, it's like, it's okay, it's shades of gray. I'm a little lighter gray or a little darker gray today.
Yeah, I write down on my notes app in my phone ideas I want to write about. And I usually start in my blog and write it there. And then if I want to develop the idea for my next book, but I got to get my first book out first.
Yeah,
but,
one at a time.
But the topic is, it doesn't need to be either or. It could be yes and. Why do we have to choose? Why can't it be yes and? And I've applied this a lot in my career in terms of the challenges I face.
No, I do a lot of that work, especially around ego and self-esteem. I think so often it's a funny thing. Somebody will compliment themselves and they say, yes, but. They're like, yeah, I'm pretty, but I don't like my legs. Yeah, I'm smart, but I messed up on that thing. But yes, and. Yeah, I'm pretty and I like my nose better than my legs. Okay, but that doesn't take away from yeah, I'm a smart person and I did a dumb thing. Those things can coexist. It's okay. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But we want it to be all one or all the other because it's tidy. Our brains like to organize things. You're a good person or a bad person. I like you or I hate you. And it's yucky to be like, oh, they sit in two categories. I don't know where to put them.
Yes. And
It's messy.
I fall prey to that. And so now that's why I love getting older and by like I like to say, like putting myself through the ringer sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I have so much more wisdom from the lows and aging and just saying and admitting like, yeah, that version of me, Toni Party Time, we needed to put her on the shelf. We got out of that life. I got out of that life what I was supposed to, but and why I talk about it. Why I talk about openly being married 3 times. Why, and luckily marriage number 3 is where it's at for me. Third time's a charm. But I talk about these things because we are all flawed, and it's okay.
But that's exactly what I wanted to close with here. I wanted to ask Toni Will, to the folks out there, especially to the women out there, like who feel like they can't do what you've done. You've done the sobriety thing. You've found love. You've developed a career. You've had kids. So, is there any message to folks that are saying, "Well, I can't do that. She's lucky," or I can't do hard things. I don't know. Is there some lesson that we can impart through your wisdom, through your experience?
Yeah, I mean, what I always like to say is I'm a girl from Midwest, from the Midwest, from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm still in my hometown I'm born and raised in. And if I can do it, you can do it. I literally believe that anyone can do anything they put their mind to if they believe in themselves. So it starts with, what are you saying to yourself? What is that self-talk? And if you can start to pull that out and really work on it, I think that the sky's the limit. And that's why I do things. I get uncomfortable talking about my accolades and accomplishments, so I'm always looking for ways to give back. So that's why I created the Women in Sports resource group for the league I'm in. I do it for the National Sports Forum. My book is going to be, not that I'm giving my book away for free, because I'm certainly not, but in my book it's like I give women or men who want to read the tools of how to do this. Because nothing is worse than someone like me coming on a podcast being like, look at me, and I believe in you, and not giving tools to say, here, start here.
Belief is a start, but then, how?
Right, how? Because that's where I get stuck. Like, I'm aware of some of these things, but how do I how do I dig myself out of this one? Whatever that is. So, yeah. And a lot of those resources are on my website and I don't charge for these things. Similar to what you do. I just want to help other people and inspire them.
But another part that I'm hearing that you didn't really say, but you said is, I think there's this idea of traumatic growth. Sometimes we need the quote unquote bad thing to then develop this skill, and we would want to transport ourselves back in time and tell younger self, don't do that, don't marry this person, don't have this drink, don't avoid the tough thing. But then you wouldn't be you. Like, we need that to get to this. And if you did the timeline differently, you might have a different life, and it may not be better. It might have been quote unquote easier, but it may not be better. Sometimes we need these growth points that sting.
100%. And there are so many of them. And so instead of avoiding them, just run into it head first. And I think talking about it also helps. And there's a lot of work from, Brene Brown or other experts in this area about shame and stigma. And I really am passionate about talking about all the things that I was ashamed of or felt stigmatized. Because once you talk about it, it shrinks that shame.
Power's gone. Can't hurt you.
So talk about it. And if you're not comfortable doing a podcast, that's fine. Go to Dr. G, find me as a coach or whoever. It's just finding like-minded people with a growth mindset who get it. Because if you surround yourself with those people, that's who you're going to become.
And that's it. I think that's a good place to end. Thank you, Toni, for joining us. Thank you for listening to another episode of Therapy Without the Couch. It's me, Dr. G. We hope to see you soon. Be well.